Welcome to SVG-TV News for Thursday, March 12, 2015. I am Jennifer Richardson with the details. The findings of a country gender assessment CGA for SVG was presented today at the National Stakeholders Workshop held at the Methodist Church Hall. The CGA is an initiative of the government and the Caribbean Development Bank to research, analyze, and take strategic action as partners to achieve enhanced capacity for the promotion of gender equality, implementation or gender mainstreaming, and a reduction of gender-based violence. Addressing the opening ceremony of the workshop, Director of Social Development Merissa Burke provided information on some of the social protection programs which the ministry has adopted over the years, geared at promoting gender equality and equity. She, however, pointed out that less single parents who are males were coming forward for assistance through the various social protection programs.
That the only program where males were coming forward for, it was for our National Assistance Fund, or the local term called the Poor Relief Program, where the turnover rate per year was more that males versus females. It was more or less 68% males towards females. The other programs, it was the reverse, where 80% approximately of the population that was targeted, that received assistance in 2014, were female-headed households, where females were coming forward.
Deputy Director of Planning, Acting Marcel Edwards-John, says though the Ministry of National Mobilisation has rolled out a number of gender-based programs to promote gender equality and equity, more needs to be done to close the gender gap. Edwards-John says it is her hope the country gender assessment will not be another report to read or put on the shelf, but will be used as a tool for action.
So let us critically examine the results of the assessment. Let us build on our achievements, those that we heard about earlier, and let us accelerate our efforts in moving the gender agenda or the gender issues forward. I would want to say that we, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, can only be competitive globally if we develop, retain, and use the best minds and talents, both male and female, that are available to us. We have to marshal all of our resources if we are to realize the vision that has been articulated in the National Social and Economic Development Plan that spans the period 2013 to 2015. What is it? It is all about improving the lives of all Vincentians.
And the social analyst with the Caribbean Development Bank, Albert Ellis, says the CDB is pleased to support SVG in its first gender assessment exercise. He described the CGA as groundbreaking work, noting that the findings will support SVG in strengthening its policies, programs, and development interventions aimed at reducing poverty and socio-economic circumstances of the population.
Poverty reduction is a central mandate of CDB. CDB's mission statement affirms the bank's intention to work in an efficient, responsive, and collaborative manner with our board member countries and other development partners towards the systematic reduction of poverty through social and economic development. At the country level, member countries assess key poverty challenges through country poverty assessments, or CPAs, which have been supported by the bank for over 2 decades. The issues highlighted in the CPAs are addressed by developing medium-term poverty reduction action plans and national poverty reduction strategies.
Ellis says internally the CDB has made strong commitments to work towards gender equality through the adoption in 2008 of its gender equality policy and operation strategy.
Our Gender Action Plan for 2013 to 2015, which complements this policy, places additional emphasis on evidence-based decision-making, focus on measurable results, not only for our member countries, but for our internal operational effectiveness. In order to carry out its mandate effectively and support member countries' development, access to credible and reliable data is critical. It is therefore necessary that member countries possess robust data and information on the nature and characteristics of poverty and inequality, two major impediments to improve quality of life and well-being. Unfortunately, this has not generally been the case, as some data collection systems are at an embryonic stage, and as a result, policies and programs to address poverty reduction and inequality, particularly gender inequality, are based more so on limited qualitative assessments than on robust empirical information. In pursuing gender equality, we know that as partners in development, we will make a difference if relevant data are frequently and systematically collected and disaggregated by sex, and if gender analysis is an integral part of the development process.
Meanwhile, Minister of National Mobilization and Gender Affairs, Frederick Stephenson, says for gender equality and equity to take place, there must be a strong collaborative effort to engage men and boys in the process. Stephenson says his government is cognizant that gender equality and equity remain a challenge, but they are working hard to ensure it becomes a reality.
Very hard to ensure that this becomes a reality. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, like many other countries around the world, we have the challenges. But we look at challenges as stepping stones as we seek to move forward in development. This identification of attempts by the Ministry of National Mobilization provides positive and substantive proof of the developments aligned to national planning, the CDB's recommendations, United Nations Women's objectives, and most importantly, based on consistent consultations with the public, demand for improvement of services. It is agreed, even at the policy level, that by no means does these attempts prove our completeness in meeting the outlined targets, but it proves that considerable strategic work still needs to be implemented as we will deliberate today. We will continue consultations with our stakeholders, approved by government and deployed by the Ministry of National Mobilization with key actors.
A strategic entry in moving forward based on the findings is the need to focus on advancing the gender equality mainstreaming strategy at the institutional, policy and projects levels. Customers of St. Vincent Electricity Services Limited are expected to see a further reduction in the fuel surcharge rate applicable on electricity bills for the month of March. According to a media release from the company's communication officer, Tamara Job-Sprott, the fuel surcharge rate on electricity bills for the month of March is 28.63 cents per unit, which represents the lowest surcharge rate since June 2009, when the rate was 24.05 cents per unit. Sprott says that the March figure represents a decrease of 3.06 cents over the month of February and follows a drop of 13.80 cents for the month of February over the month of January, and that the further decrease in the fuel surcharge rate is primarily as a result of the price of fuel on the international market. Even with the latest reduction, the company is, however, encouraging consumers to continue to practice energy conservation. Last evening was an historic one for the Garifuna people, as representatives from several countries where Garifuna reside congregated in a single space for the first time in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The gathering marked the official start of the 2015 International Garifuna Summit at the Peace Memorial Hall that is being held under the theme, The Garifuna, a Nation Displaced, Cultural Rights, Economic Survival and Reparations. The conference will run through March 15th. Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Sports and Culture, Luke Brown, in his address said the ULP government continues to serve the Garifuna people well, specifically in the struggle for reparations, and pledged the government's commitment towards the preservation of the Garifuna heritage and culture.
Whatever way we could contribute to that cause, I think that we should earnestly consider to do so, because it's going to redound to the economic survival of the Caribbean and the people of the Caribbean in a way that we deserve. And there are several other ways in which we continue to celebrate, and we hope to celebrate the Garifuna. One thing that is on the agenda right now, and in fact you might see it materialize before too long, is the creation of a Garifuna village. The details related to that creation, I think, are being ironed out, but there is some consensus on a location, and we hope to see very soon that idea being brought to life as another way of paying tribute to those who have come before us, to our ancestors.
And President of the Garifuna Heritage Foundation, David Darkie Williams, says it is their hope that at the end of the conference, a declaration will be formulated to bring about further advancement of all Garifuna in the diaspora.
We have with us for this conference scholars and practitioners and cultural activists who have come to present over the next few days on the following themes. 1, the Garifuna Nation. 2, valuing a hybrid culture. 3, the culture of resistance, reshaping the context. 4, the socio-political, socio-economic dynamics of reparations and of reparations for Garifuna.
Meanwhile, the keynote speaker at the opening of the 2015 Garifuna Summit was Dr. Sheila Walker, cultural anthropologist, filmmaker, and managing director of Afro Diaspora Incorporated. In her address, Dr. Walker said it is very important that persons come to the realization that regardless of color or race, all human beings originated in Africa.
Who is of African origin? And sometimes there are people who don't seem to think that they are. And so I then ask what planet they're from. Because given what we know now about human beings who live on Earth, who are from Earth, everyone is of African origin. We know that from the paleontologists who keep finding older and older skeletal remains in Africa. There were efforts to seek human origins elsewhere. It just never worked because it wasn't true. The British buried some bones and then dug them up and said, guess what we found? Well, that was what they found was a hoax, okay? So we know now from paleontology, from DNA, genetics, from linguistics, that all human beings originated in Africa and almost all of human history.
Meanwhile, earlier today, a number of primary and secondary schools participated in the first Schools Garifuna Folk Festival. The festival forms part of the Garifuna Heritage Foundation celebrations for Heritage Month, as well as the International Decade for People of African Descent 2015 to 2024. Addressing the gathering at the Victoria Park, Senior Education Officer Aldia Gumbs-Dyer applauded the Garifuna Foundation for taking the initiative to incorporate the students in their celebrations, adding that the youths of this country are the ones responsible for continuing the cultural practices that are passed on to them.
The Ministry of Education is very grateful to the organizers of this conference to have included the students of this country. It is an extremely vital step as preservation of any culture rests so heavily upon the youth of a nation.
Gumbs-Dyer further added that students and teachers can expect more emphasis on Vincentian heritage in the new lower secondary schools syllabus.
I wish to add that with full implementation of the new lower secondary school history syllabus, greater focus will be placed on the history of this country. Hence, this serves as a fitting exercise to support the work that is being done within the Ministry of Education.
Here now is an excerpt of some of the performances at today's event.
He was a world-class diplomat, and most importantly, he was and still is to.
My heart is strong, like a carry in a long canoe. Me want me money for bad,
they can tell us how our heritage is alive in us.
Ha, hey, I say, oh, 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 ha.
The fruits of our heritage. Joseph Chatelier, who is he? Let me tell you what my teacher told me. He was a black Carib from the Garifuna people and is our country's lone national hero.